Noted. Q8. Name the revealed books mentioned in the Quran, giving the name of the messengers they were revealed to and the message they contained. 10. B. All the revealed books were sent by God. What in your opinion makes the Quran unique? 4. A. Holy, the Quran mentions only some of the revealed books that include Zabur, Psalms, revealed to Hazrat Daud, David, Tawrat, Torah, to Hazrat Musa, Moses, Injil, Gospel, to Hazrat Isa, Jesus Christ, and Holy, the Quran revealed to the last messenger of God, Hazrat Muhammad. The Quran also mentions some Suhaf, or Sahifas, scriptures that were sent to various messengers. They include Suhaf of Hazrat Ibrahim and Hazrat Musa. Surah 87, Allah. Belief in divine books and scripts is one of the articles of faith. The Quran declares this belief as an act of righteousness by saying, it is righteousness to believe in God and the last day and the angels and the books and the messengers. 2:177, Al-Baqarah. This means that a Muslim cannot be righteous without having true faith in all the revealed books including the Quran. A large number of messengers were sent by God to different nations to convey his message to the misguided people. Humans are always in need of divine guidance for their spiritual development just as they need food for their physical growth. All pre-Quranic books contained a code of conduct, Sharia, for the respective community. The Quran declares that the message of the previous books was the same. It is he who sent down to you, step by step, in truth, the book, confirming what went before it, and he sent down the law, Torah of Hazrat Musa, and Gospel of Hazrat Isa. 3:3, Al-Imran. Muslims believe that the original teachings contained in the previous divine books and Suhaf were the same as are contained in the Quran. They are, Tawhid, oneness of God, the hereafter, obedience to God by worshipping him, and following his dictates by treating others in a kind way. They also contain stories of the earlier messengers and their communities, as well as the story of creation of Adam and Eve. The Quran refers to this in the following verse. This is in the books of the earliest revelations, the Suhaf, books of Ibrahim and Musa. 87:18-19, Al-Aylah. Similarly, some verses of them mention the coming of the last messenger of God as is stated in the Quran, and remember, Jesus the son of Mary said, O children of Israel, I am the apostle of God sent to you, confirming the law, Torah that came before me, and giving the glad tiding of an apostle to come after me whose name shall be Ahmed. 61:6, Al-Saf. The Quran, for this reason, expands the definition of true Muslims as, and who believe in what has been revealed to you, O Muhammad, and what was revealed before you, and of the hereafter they are certain in faith. 2:4, Al-Baqarah. By Dr. Iftik Hayul Haq 033342570013. They commanded their people to shape their lives according to the divine commands and be a source of comfort and benefit to their fellows so that a balanced society could be created. These teachings were restricted in their scope and not for all times and communities. Therefore, these books were corrupted by their communities under the influence of Satan, about whom the Quran has warned, Satan is but an avowed enemy to man. 12:5, Yusuf. Finally, the last messenger of God, Hazrat Muhammad, received the final and universal message of God, which was not for some particular people or a particular era, but for all people and for all times to come. The Quran is the comprehensive and perfect divine script that was revealed to guide all communities till day of judgment. It contains guidance about all social, economic, political, and legal matters as is asserted by God in the Quran. Nothing have we omitted from the book. 6:38, Al-An'am. The Quran, therefore, marks the end of the process of divine revelation for mankind. Holy Prophet was given this news by God in the plain of Arafat in the following words, This day I have perfected your religion for you and completed my favor upon you and chosen for you Islam as the only religion. B. The Quran is unique and distinct from of all previous scripts in several ways. Unlike earlier books, the Quran enjoys immunity against corruption, and that is guaranteed by God himself. Indeed, it is we who sent down the message, and indeed, we will be its guardian. 15:9, Al-Hijjah. The Quran will remain beyond the reach of evil spirits as it is in the preserved tablet. The Quran is an eternal source of guidance for the whole humankind. Every surah of the Quran is a complete chapter in its own way. So, the Quran can be read in an easy way by picking out any surah, unlike other revealed books. Moreover, the language of the Quran, Arabic, is a living language, whereas the languages of previous books are almost dead today. The style of the Quranic expression is totally inimitable, and that also proves its uniqueness. Q.A. Give a full account of the belief in prophets. 10. B. How are these prophets and their messages important for Muslims? 4. ANSA. Belief in all the prophets is an article of faith. The Iman Mufassal states, I believe in God, in His angels, in His books, in His messengers, in the last day, and in the fact that everything, good or bad, is decided by God Almighty, and in the life after death. All prophetic messengers were humans and sent by God. They led a normal human life and were mortal. They were, however, distinct from ordinary humans in many ways. Being God's chosen humans, they were infallible, Masoom, and, therefore, could not commit any sin. Instead, they represented perfection of human conduct and nobility. They could not disobey God in any way. They were assigned a divine mission to guide the misguided communities to the right path. These prophets preached the universal message of Tawhid and obedience to God. Since they all were rejected and persecuted by their corrupt communities, they were granted special protection by God. Their distinguished qualities have been mentioned in the Quran as, these prophets were the men to whom we gave the book, and authority and prophethood. 6 hours 90 minutes, Al-An'am. This verse indicates that the prophets were specially privileged people who received divine message and were gifted with authority and prophethood. Similarly, another verse describes the prophets as, before you, O Muhammad, also, the prophets we sent were but men, to whom we granted inspiration. Nor did we give them bodies that ate no food, nor were they exempt from death. 21:7-8, Al-Anbiya. This verse sums up the similarities and dissimilarities between ordinary men and the prophetic messengers of God. By Dr. Iftik Hayul Haq 033342570013. In order to demonstrate his support for these prophetic messengers, God granted them prophetic signs. The Quran mentions some of these stories. Hazrat Ibrahim's miraculous survival in the fire has been mentioned as, we said, O fire, be cool, and a means of safety for Ibrahim. 21 hours 69 minutes, Al-Anbiya. The special distinction enjoyed by Hazrat Musa is mentioned as, and to Musa God spoke directly, without the intervention of angels. For 164, Al-Nisa. The Quran also describes the prophetic signs granted to Hazrat Musa. For example, his staff, rod or stick, would turn into a moving snake as he put it down, but when he, Musa, saw it moving as if it had been a snake, he turned back in retreat. 28:31, Al-Qasas. The Quran gives a description of the miraculous birth of Jesus and his ability to speak while he was just an infant. The Quran says, and remember, Jesus the son of Mary said, O children of Israel, I am the messenger of God sent to you, confirming the Torah that came before me. 61:6, Al-Saf. Jesus was awarded other prophetic signs such as his ability to treat the leper and the blind and giving life to the dead. Many other prophets and their stories have been mentioned in the Quran. There is a difference between a Nabi and a Rasul. A prophet, Nabi, is one who received divine revelation, and an apostle, messenger, Rasul, is one who was awarded a divine book, and who left behind him a community, Ummah. According to Ahadith, a total of 124.000 prophets were sent to guide humans, and out of these, only some were messengers. The Quran mentions about 25 prophets and messengers. Before Hazrat Muhammad, all prophets were sent to some particular community, but God sent them all through the ages of human history. They were sent with a renewed divine message because the earlier one was corrupted by the respective people. The Holy Quran has been guaranteed protection against any corruption for all the times to come. Similarly, the teachings and messages of all the prophets were perfected in the person of the Holy Prophet, as is mentioned in the Quran, "This day have I perfected your religion for you." 5:3, Almeida. This means that all the teachings contained in their original form in different scriptures have been combined in the Quran revealed to the Holy Prophet. With the coming of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, the chain of the prophets came to an end, as the Quran says, "Muhammad is not the father of any of your men, but he is the messenger of God and seal of prophets." 33:40, Al-Ahzab. ANS.B. Belief in all prophets, and the message preached by them is an essential part of the fundamental teachings of Islam. All these were chosen by God with the special purpose of guiding the misguided people. This belief will strengthen Muslims' belief about God's goodness and love for humans. It also strengthens belief of Muslims in God's powers to guide and protect humans. By believing in all the prophets, Muslims realize that humans always need divine guidance, as they are vulnerable before Satan, whose mission is to misguide them. All prophets and messengers demonstrated perfection of nobility and human conduct and set examples of unusual steadfastness and patience. Muslims, therefore, need to follow their exemplary conduct. This belief also strengthens the Muslims' faith in predestination, as prophethood is always predestined. The Quran endorses it. God does grant his grace to such of his servants as he pleases. 14:11, Ibrahim. By Dr. Iftik Hayul Haq 033342570013. Q.A. What do Muslims believe about the day of resurrection and judgment? 10. B.I. How does this belief affect the daily living of Muslims? 4. Or BII, why is the belief in resurrection important to Muslims in their daily living? 4. ANSA. Belief in the hereafter is one of the articles of faith, an integral part of the Muslim belief, as is commanded in the Quran, "O you who believe. Believe in God and his messenger." Anyone who denies God, his angels, his books, his messengers, and the day of judgment, has gone far, far astray. For 136, Al-Nisa, according to Muslim belief, a new phase of existence begins after physical death. Our souls go in a state or place that is called barzakh, which is referred to in the Quran as, "Before them is a partition or barrier till the day they are raised up." 23:100, Al-Mu'minun. God declares his unusual powers of doing so in these words, "It is he who originates creation, then brings it back again, and this, the latter, is easier for him." 30:27, Al-Rum. People will be held accountable in the graves at the hands of two angels, Munkar and Nakir, though the Quran does not give its details. Instead, some verses talk about this at some places. For example, if you could see, when the angels take the souls of the unbelievers, at death, how they smite their faces and their backs. 850, Al-Anfal. Many hadiths give more details about this. Since the Quraysh used to ridicule the Islamic teaching of resurrection, the Prophet in Makkah received several verses regarding this. For example, the Quran says, "Does man think that we cannot assemble his bones? Nay, we are able to put together in perfect order the very tips of his fingers." 75:3-4, Al-Qiyamah. It further says, "And of his signs is that you see the earth barren and desolate, but when we send down rain to it, it is stirred to life and yields increase. Surely, he who gives life to the dead earth can surely give life to the men who are dead." 41:39, Fussilat. Similarly, several verses mention the end of time in a variety of ways. According to Muslim belief, the angel Israfil will blow a trumpet 3 times on the day of judgment. First trumpet will cause all life forms to perish. Second trumpet will herald the destruction of the universe. Third trumpet will sound and the angel Israfil will die. The Quran, in this respect says, "And when the trumpet is blown there will be no kinship among them that day, nor will they ask of one another." 23:101-102, Al-Mu'minun. There are horrifying details of the Day of Judgment in many surahs in a variety of descriptive details. For example, when the sun is folded up, when the stars fall, losing their luster. Surah 81, Al-Takwir, another surah says, when the sky is cleft asunder, when the stars are scattered, when the oceans are suffered to burst forth, and when the graves are turned upside down. Surah 82, Al-Infitar. According to many hadiths, all humans will be assembled in the plain of Arafat to stand accountable before their Lord. Depending on the ratio between good and evil deeds, everyone will be rewarded a life of eternal joy in paradise or thrown into the fire of hell, as is categorically declared in the Quran. That day shall you be recompensed for all that you did. This our record speaks about you with truth. 45:28-29, Al-Jathiyah. Perfection of divine justice is repeatedly. By Dr. Iftik Hayul Haq 033342570013. Mentioned in the Quranic verses, then shall anyone who has done atom's weight of good, shall see it. And anyone who has done an atom's weight of evil, shall see it. Surah 99, Al-Zilzal. This means God will prove his justice by showing the record of one's actions in the world to justify their rewards, as is mentioned in the Quran. Every person is held responsible for his, or her, deeds. On the day of resurrection we shall bring out for him a scroll which he will see spread open. He will be ordered, read your own record, it is sufficient that you judge yourself today. 17:13-14, Bani Israel, Al-Isra. Those who had led a pious life will be given the scroll of their deeds in their right hands. Conversely, those who had led a life of disobedience to God will receive the same in their left hand. These will be the indications of entry into paradise or hell. Either way, it will be an eternal living. The Quran gives details of paradise in these words, then the companions of the right hand. What will be the companions of the right hand? These will be nearest to God, in gardens of bliss. 56:8-12, Al-Waqiyah. Similarly, it gives description of the dwellers of hell, too, the companions of the left hand. What will be the companions of the left hand? They will be in the midst of a fierce blast of fire and in boiling water, and in the shade of black smoke. 56:41-43, Al-Waqiyah. ANSBI. A strong belief in the hereafter invokes a genuine fear of God and the consequences of disobedience to his dictates. This belief also inculcates a sense of accountability before the Master of the Day of Judgment. The believers will observe the 5 pillars and the social teachings of Islam. They will also observe the moral code of conduct of Islam. They will consider this worldly living as a temporary abode to work for the ultimate reward in the next world, as is directed by the Prophet. The world is the cultivating ground for the hereafter. They will do as many good deeds as possible and will not be discouraged by the trials and setbacks of this temporary life. Instead, they will hope for the eternal living in paradise as guaranteed by the Quran. Nay, the hereafter is better and more enduring. 87:17, Al-Allah. ANSBII. Belief in resurrection is among the fundamental beliefs of Islam. Together with the belief in Tawhid, unity of God, it plays a vital role in shaping the conduct of a Muslim. A true Muslim believes that this worldly existence is purely a temporary abode and a place of tests and trials, whereas Al-Akhirah is a life of eternity. The Prophet guided his followers by declaring, "The world is a cultivating ground for the hereafter." With such firmly held beliefs, a Muslim is bound to develop the type of conduct desired by God. Such a Muslim will develop taqwa or genuine fear of God, and fulfill his duties towards God as well as the fellow beings. He will try to be polite, decent, caring and considerate towards all, Muslims and non-Muslims. A strong faith in the hereafter will enable him to endure sufferings and setbacks of worldly life. Therefore, a strong believer will strengthen his belief in the divine justice in the hereafter. By Dr. Iftik Hayul Haq 033342570013. Q.A. What does the statement, "There is no ability or power except through Allah," tell you about Muslim belief in Allah's predestination and decree? 10. B. To what extent does this belief affect the daily living of Muslims? 4. A. Belief in predestination is one of the fundamental beliefs in Islam. It is also called belief in qadr, power of God, or taqdir, God's predestination. The hadith, Iman Mufassal, mentions it as, I believe in God, in His angels, in His books, in His messengers, in the last day, and in the fact that everything, good or bad, is decided by God Almighty and in life after death. The words qadr and taqdir have the same roots as those of qadi and qadir, all-powerful. Thus, this belief is linked with God's utmost powers to create, sustain, and decide all affairs of the whole universe. This is established in the Quranic verse that says, For to God do all questions go back, for decision. 8:44 Al-Anfal, another the Quranic verse defines God's decree qadr as, the Lord has created and balanced all things, and has fixed their destinies and guided them. 87:2-3 Al-Allah, the Quran further strengthens and crystallizes this belief in several other verses where His knowledge and powers are mentioned collectively. For example, the decree continues to descend among them, that you may know that God has power over all things and that God indeed encompasses all things in knowledge. 65:12 Al-Talaq. Considering God's might and majesty, it becomes clear that His knowledge is intimately linked with His power and both the attributes are absolutely unlimited. Since He knows everything, He alone controls all His creations. He decides and determines the destiny of everyone because it is He who brought you from the wombs of your mothers when you knew nothing, and He gave you hearing and sight and intelligence and affection that you may give thanks to God. 16 hours 78 minutes, Al-Nahl. The Quran also mentions 5 domains of human life that are solely in the knowledge of and predestined by God. Verily God alone has the knowledge of the hour, of the day of judgment. It is He who sends down the rain and knows what is in the wombs, although no person knows what he will earn tomorrow, nor does he know in which land he will die. Indeed, God is all-knowing, all-aware. 31:34, Luqman. Here, intelligence means free will, and that is both a gift of God and a means to test humans. Humans have been endowed with the ability to tell right from wrong so that nobody can justify their wrong deeds, evils and crimes by linking them with predestination. So, rewards of deeds are based on our performance and efforts. This fact is stated in the Quran as, that man can have nothing but what he strives for. 53:39, Al-Najm. A hadith of the Prophet reported by Hazrat Ali clarifies the relationship between predestination and human efforts. There is none of you, nor any created soul, who does not have his place written for him in paradise or hell, and whether he will be wretched or fortunate. A man said, O Messenger of God, should we then rely on what is written for us and abandon carrying out good deeds? The Messenger of God replied, No, carry out good actions. As for the fortunate ones, good deeds will be made easy for them to carry out, and as for the wretched ones, evil actions will be made easy for them. Sahihain. Thus, humans have free will as well as limitations. These limitations remind humans of God's decree and power. For example, no human can, on his own, become a prophetic messenger or can have any degree of control over his own birth. The Holy Prophet elaborated this teaching in a hadith. Bear it in mind that if all the people combined together to grant you some benefit, they would not be able to do so except that which God has predestined for you. By Dr. Iftik Hayul Haq 033342570013. This way, this belief strengthens faith of the believers as well as teaches them to keep making efforts. B. A strong belief in God's predestination directly influences the conduct of Muslims in a number of ways. A believer will develop a true feeling of contentment. He will consider his achievements as a sign of God's blessing and will express gratitude to his Lord. In case of setback or failure, he will seek God's help in order to keep his faith intact. He will remember the Quranic claim that says, Be sure we shall test you with something of fear and hunger, some loss in goods or lives or the fruits of your toil. 2:155, Al-Baqarah. he will always reassure himself of God's promise of doing justice. So, if a project fails despite a man's best efforts, he will associate the result with God's will. Being a Muslim, such an attitude is the real asset, and this will help him live a normal life without developing criminal or negative thoughts.